and welcome to the first episode of the RandomCast Podcast. With me today are two of my special friends. We have
Ivanna!
Marvin.
Alright, so today we'll be talking about some of our embarrassing childhood stories. It may be about us, it may not be, but if we're going to tell stories about other people, let's just not call out their actual names, you know? So, let's first start with, what was your most awkward phase growing up? Marvin?
Ladies first.
Oh, okay. Why does it have to start with ladies?
Okay. Why not? I think I can start. I think
definitely
my most awkward phase would have to be high school. Has to be high school. I mean, when I grew up as a kid, I was really taught to speak English first. So transitioning from a private school that spoke only in English and then going to USC, which is like a much larger school and everyone spoke Bisaya or Tagalog.
Which school was this again?
USC South.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
You did transfer schools.
I did. I was
USC to USC South.
No. Sorry, I was the private school was St. Paul Learning Center Incorporated. It's in Guadalupe, yeah. And then for my high school I transferred over to USC South, and it was kind of a difficult for me to culture shock. Difficult for me to adjust because I couldn't really speak Bisaya all that well, and all that jazz.
And your Bisaya is still not as...
It's not as good.
Likewise for me, I mean, I would agree with you that high school would be the most awkward, considering from where I came from, Sacred Heart, it's all English. You have to speak English, or if you're extreme Chinese, because we're a Chinese school, yes.
Chinese?
Hokkien, or
Can
Mandarin.
you do Mandarin? Oh, okay.
If you're brave enough, you can do Mandarin, but but no one really did that. But everything had to be done in English. Imagine, even Filipino class had some English topics, like English translations. But day-to-day interactions with your peers would be in mostly English. Then it's gonna be mixed with some Bisaya. So it's gonna be Bislish in all that sense.
And was that sort of like your awkward phase too?
Not necessarily, because on a personal note, I was kind of like an outcast in my batch because of some physical features that I may not want to disclose at this point yet. But you guys know. But definitely it was a factor as to social awkwardness, and then not really knowing how to express myself in the most efficient and effective way, probably because of the way I was raised. So I guess that contributed. So because when you think about it, high school is really that phase when you really want to socialize. Grade school, grade school is where you're trying to build your foundations for whatever.
Well, in fairness, when we're in grade school, we don't really have that sort of, social thing. No, because there wasn't really
with everyone.
I think it's because in high school there's more of a social hierarchy at that point.
Yes.
In elementary, there's not really much. Everyone is just there, Everyone is everyone. That's
if you play with them, you're friends with them.
Yeah.
That's basically what elementary is.
And as soon as you start progressing, like grade 4, 5, 6, then segue to high school, then to college, that's when you can see the division of cliques.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Cliques.
Especially when puberty comes along, right?
We're gonna who's hot and who's not.
Who's early or who's not?
It was always weird because if you're like, especially I have to say, I think it's more awkward for girls when they transition into puberty.
Yes, absolutely. I can say that
Because it's like, guys make fun, especially if they're attracted to the girl, but they don't know how to say it, so they end up making fun of her.
Yeah, I guess that would be the awkwardness.
Yeah, and it's also awkward for the girl. I mean, she's developing, and her, let's say, there's a girl, well, there are actually several girls in high school, I guess some can relate to this, that they develop their chest faster in their earlier years, and guys stare at them or make fun of it.
How much more during swimming class?
Yes. Oh, wait, you had swimming class?
We had swimming class.
Ooh, interesting.
My swimming class was in elementary.
I had college.
Imagine growing up with those classmates of yours from elementary to high school. Yeah. That was a failed whistle, but I can't even say anything because I can't even whistle. But anyways, moving on.
Alright. Okay, how about you? Come on, we're just we're the
Okay,
ones.
okay. In terms of the language barrier, it's gonna be different on my end because like it's me coming from my town and then all the way in the city where everyone like you guys speak in English. So yeah, I can speak the English. I'm not just fair in a way, but not really that fluent.
Functional.
Yeah.
Functional, conversational.
But I'm not saying it's gonna be broken English or something.
Yeah.
You speak pretty straight English based on our conversations.
Yeah, but that's when I realized when I was here and like I meet you friends, and then like when I had my first job in the call center, and then like when I had like you had this recording, and then like you had to reply on those messages, and then when I repeat and record it, I'm like, oh my god, it's so.
On the note of the English part, I don't know if any of you guys have experienced this. I don't know with RG here, but have you ever had that experience wherein you're talking with somebody? This is more in college.
Okay.
If you're talking with somebody, you're speaking in straight English, and then they will try to change their English accent to the point that's kind of like mocking you.
I've had that, but I don't think it was more of mocking. It was just that they're trying hard. They're trying hard to match. That's why when I hear people do that, I swap consciously to Bisaya. That way they're more comfortable speaking to me.
Yeah.
Because there are times I will admit that when I get lost in a conversation, I instantly go English right away.
Well, I have a question. Is it mocking or just unconsciously trying to copy? Maybe.
Sometimes you can tell that they're mocking you.
Yeah, sometimes
okay.
based on the tone.
I
had my fair share of experiences, and I was like triggered.
Ooh.
And I just said, I can speak Bisaya, I can understand Bisaya. You can just talk to me like that.
Although, I will say I'm not that sensitive when it comes to that. Although I do get triggered sometimes when people...
When you can really sense it.
No, not really when you can sense it. It's more like when, there's nothing wrong, okay, if you're trying to learn the language. But if you're trying to speak English in a tone that makes it sound like you're superior... That's dumb. That's dumb.
That's different.
I mean, speaking a language doesn't make you any smarter than the next person who speaks Bisaya or Tagalog.
Exactly.
So, what's the point in showing off that you can sort of speak English? I mean, I just saw the post a while ago that owning a camera doesn't make you a good paragraph. What?
That means...
I mean, it's not wrong.
It's also not
right. So I'm just saying, like, there's nothing wrong with speaking Bisaya. There's nothing wrong with speaking English. It just gets awkward when you're just trying so hard to prove that you're good at a certain thing. There's nothing wrong with learning.
You're not.
It's all for that, but mix it with an attitude that's arrogant and.
When you're trying hard, that's a different story.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, we're getting off topic.
Okay. Yeah, awkward phase, high school. I think everyone would agree.
Yeah, high school.
Yeah.
How about elementary though? Were there any weird things that happened in elementary?
Nah, I think those are just.
I have weird things during when I was in elementary.
Okay, let's hear it.
I remember having like, is it Hella class, like home economics and livelihood?
Basically.
Yeah.
That, and we had this project. We're doing cross stitch, and I was having my cold that time, and we were like concentrating on doing the cross stitch until I was like about to sneeze, and then when I sneezed, I snort. Formed into a balloon, and it erupted in my nose like a volcano. And my classmates saw that, and they were like, "Oh my god!" And then like from now that they were like, "On that day, Mount Baning erupted." So it's like my nose was a mountain for some reason.
Kids can be cruel, man.
Yeah.
Kids can be cruel. I know this one story. I'm not gonna say anyone's name, but this was in elementary, and I'm not gonna say what grade, but. We were all sitting in class, and then my teacher was discussing, and then in the middle of class, just paused and was like,
I know where
and this was in English, mind you. Who pooed their pants? It's very awkward. It's very normal at that time, but hearing it now is very awkward. Who pooed their pants, and no one said a word because the person who did it wouldn't want to admit it, and also no one knew who it was because we could smell it. It just wasn't very strong. So then our teacher, from the end of the class, asked each one of us to stand up so she could smell the seal.
Oh my god!
We one by one. This is a class of 20, by the way. She spent like 15 minutes going through the class.
Inspection.
Then it reached to me, and I was number 2, mind you. And
Are you the one?
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. She told me to stand up, and it was fine. And then the person in front of me, the last person, she was like, stand up. He was like, stand up, stand up.
Oh, dude, no, that's sad.
It was really sad. And then and we didn't make fun of him for that. We were just very amazed at a certain thing we discovered. It's that we tried to make it smell better by spraying perfume on it. It didn't smell any better. It just made the smell of shit all the more apparent.
Okay.
It's like acid inspection.
Oh, no. No, for my end, I can't really recall anything that's really embarrassing from elementary because everyone was like pretty uptight.
Yeah.
But
uptight elementary students.
Is this like Asian parents' expectation from their students?
You want bike? No, you be doctor.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's go.
Alright, how about recently? Like, what are some more of the more recent things that happened to you that you think is or at least you were conscious about, but you don't really know, you know?
Recent, like how recent?
Like, in our adult years already, like, it could be college, it could be like after we graduated when we're working already.
Oh, you know that moment where you can't really live up to the expectations of your job sometimes? Like, you know, you really fall short, especially if you're like kind of reckless with some technicalities, like oof. And you know, in a way, it's kind of like what I'm currently going through. Like, overlook some things and like, okay, you're getting chewed out by your superiors, but then again, you know, it's a learning process. But yeah, basically, you know, it is embarrassing. It is embarrassing because, you know, you're expected to do this. This is the performance we're expecting from you, and then that's not what you're doing. Something's off. So yeah.
I remembered something. This is related to where we were training, okay, and then it's in our air-conditioned room, closed, okay, and I really, really had to shit. So I stood up, but before I could shit, I just had to relieve the pressure to make it all the way to the CR. So from the back of the room, I walked to the door and I crop dust.
Wait, where was this?
This was in a company I worked for before.
Oh, okay.
I cropped and they didn't know it was me because apparently it didn't spread until I actually left the room.
Oh.
When I came back, they were already blaming people of who did it, and I'm just sitting there like, what's going on?
Is this like a time bomb? Like, you have to wait outside and it diffuses when you're outside.
Yeah, that is why I make sure I had to do my business before starting the day.
Well, sometimes I can't do that.
I can't do
as much
that.
as possible, I want to do it early in the morning, but there are times I couldn't. So that's why I do it like afternoon after work, and like, there's this. Speaking of awkward, like it's just the end of the work, and I was like, I want to go outside the cage while I was counting money, and then my office like, oh my god, you look like they were sweating, and like you just want to.
Are you okay?
Yeah, like okay? That, and they're like, no, I just want to go to the CR right away. And then
you okay?
Then done. I went back, and then my the teller beside me is like,
success.
Ooh, yeah.
It's actually kind of awkward also now in my current job because we there's the operations floor, right? And then we have to get tissue, right? But the tissue is like on a dispenser behind the glass door to get out of the operation. So if you want to get tissue, you have to really roll the tissue out.
So they will see you doing it.
So it's like in the back of my mind, people who see me and I think like, oh, I know what you're doing later. I know where you're going.
And this is why I advocate for restrooms with sprays.
And it's like
sprays, bidets.
While I'm taking the tissue, I say, "Don't judge me."
Everyone can see you.
Yeah, look how long of a roll he's getting.
It could be for other reasons.
What other reason? Because they're at work. That is not less embarrassing.
It's gonna be a bayou break for some reason.
Exactly.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's kind of different dealing with embarrassment as a kid and as an adult, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, as a kid, I don't know. How did you take embarrassment? I just sat quietly and just kind of just internalized all of it.
I think when you're a kid compared when you're an adult, it's gonna be a different way because when you're a kid, like, oh my god, it's like the end of the world, and then like when you're an adult, like, okay, that was bad, but okay, but let's move on. Something like that. I mean,
the way I look at it is like, I think I would agree with RG in a way that dealing with embarrassing moments as a kid, you're either going to be silent and taking it in, or you're going to be crying.
Yeah, there's only two extremes.
It's really bad. You can actually do that. You know, that's also applicable for adults. It's also applicable for adults.
Oh my god.
Just fucking.
But
I'm pooing.
no. My point is like it's also applicable for adults. But there is now some sort of synthesis. You get to process it better. You think back as to why is it embarrassing you.
Really
that embarrassing.
Yeah, but kids can rebound. When we were kids, we rebounded better though.
Yes.
As adults, because we can process it better, it lingers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially those times
That
like
actually makes sense.
like in the middle of the night, you're trying to sleep but you can't, and then when just as about to fall asleep, your brain's like, hey, remember that time when you did this?
I think we've all lost sleep because of that.
It happens.
It's like, why am I thinking of this now? Oh god, that's just
fun, guys. This is fun.
Yeah, this is shitty business.
Anyway,
that's why there's a toilet.
Yeah. Oh my god, we're like dumping shit on each other.
Hey, it's just like the card game Poo.
yeah. If you guys haven't played Pooh, it's a really fun game.
Yeah,
It's literally throwing shit at one another. Yeah,
Literally.
Yes.
literal shit, not just metaphorical hurtful shit.
It's literal.
Literal shit.
Yeah.
So anyway, that would conclude the first episode of the RandomCast Podcast. I hope you guys had fun with us today.
Thanks for listening, guys.
And you can find them in their social media. We have Ivanna for her Instagram and Facebook. And Marvin, you don't want to plug anything?
I'll do my LinkedIn and my Instagram.
Alright, his LinkedIn and his Instagram. And we will talk to you guys next time.
See ya.